Well, the hits just keep on coming these days for Hillary Clinton and her email scandal. An Associated Press review of the homebrew server Clinton used while Secretary of State, finding questionable cyber safety. The server more vulnerable to hackers because it had software that let users access and control it remotely over the internet. That's according to detailed records compiled in 2012. Such software was also the subject of industry and government warnings about the cyber risks, even from low-skilled intruders. Melissa, you're shaking your head. The hits keep on coming.
I mean, it's just, in a way, it's a ridiculous conversation to keep having, because anyone who has ever worked with a government clearance says that there is absolutely no question that she knew she wasn't allowed to do this. There's no ambiguity around it. And I think it's at the point now where we're just waiting to see what is going to happen. And people in law enforcement say, look, it takes time for them to get their ducks in a row and really do their investigation. But it seems like something has to come of this. It's just, what is the timing?
Well, I want to ask Arthur what the legal implications are now that we know this, in addition to everything else, and that the subject of U.S. government and industry warnings this was at the time of over attacks from even low-skilled intruders. I mean, this is nuts.
So what she's made clear of is she's not a technology type of person. So that's her first line of defense. Not that that's a legal defense, but that's where if she has to testify about it.
So ignorance is a defense?
It's ignorance of the technology. People are sympathetic to that, especially when you have things like go to mypc.com. So she could be in Washington and she could click on a couple of buttons, or her aides probably did, and they could access her computer at home. The real issue is what is the harm? In other words, she could have gotten us in trouble. It could have been hacked. It could have been attacked. But was it? And if it was, what were the damages? In the law, if you get hit by a car, and it's the car driver's 100% fault, but nothing happens to you, you're not hurt, there's no lawsuit. There needs to be the damage. So what we haven't heard yet is what was the damage? What happened because of this? And then you could come down with this sentence.
It's interesting perspective because, Harris, I would just think putting our national security at risk
would be
in such a large way.
But there may be a sentence for that. There may be a punishment for that. But if it was at risk and then was violated, then obviously the punishment should be much greater than if it was...
Because the harm is greater.
Because the harm is greater.
Well, in any event...
That's a lawyer's analysis of this situation.
And you're a brilliant one.
No, I didn't say I'm brilliant. That's how we look at it.
In my humble estimation, she should hire you. But, you know, going back to what I said earlier this hour about what she potentially should say at the debate tonight about, you know, I'm sorry, I was wrong, a mistake, let it go, move on, rather than trying to explain it. Legally, is I made a mistake a defense?
It's, well, intent, in criminal law, intent is almost always a part of the equation.
Something happened here, it would be a crime, right?
Unless you're reckless. If it's you knew it and you disregarded, you knew the risk. So if someone said to her, Hillary, and someone's going to testify, I said to her, Hillary, if you do this, you're putting us at risk. And she said, I don't care. I'm doing it anyway.
We already know
that's a reckless act.
She has done 20 times what General Petraeus did, and they prosecuted him. We are now in a banana republic. That means a lawless country where the president is able to dole out prosecutions as he feels. Dinesh D'Souza writes a book critical of the regime. He goes to jail. Petraeus is critical of Iraq and says that Benghazi was a terror attack. He somehow gets dinged for this and prosecuted for the same thing. But Hillary's was far worse. And no prosecution. I'm sorry. She knew the law. The White House knew the law. The National Security Team knew the law. And President Obama said on 60 Minutes he did not believe that she was hacked.
He said, I don't think so.
And today the AP says, maybe. And we already know there's a report that said that her emails were up for sale. So she was hacked, and the government
They're
didn't
all going to have to hedge their bets, I would imagine, until we see what the FBI has, because that's what the case lies.
All
right. I need your brilliant mind again. Have you seen this video?
Yeah.